born and raised here in Alexandria in 1950, and had an opportunity to, be blessed to not only live in this great city, but to be part of it for, just about my entire life. As a youngster growing up, living in the city, helping to integrate the public school system, volunteering in the community as a youth Red Cross volunteer and so forth. And then all my accolades and things I've accomplished in high school at T.C. Williams High School, and then to go off to college in Connecticut, come back to Alexandria, and the rest is history. Alexandria, as a kid growing up here, and again, even though there was a lot of segregation, it wasn't as blatant. You didn't always notice it and feel it. One, because except for perhaps maybe the movie theaters and then at the public swimming pools, African Americans weren't allowed, and we had our own swimming pool, we had our own movie theater, and we just assumed that's the way things are supposed to be. And of course, public schools were segregated as well. And I went to Laws Crouch Elementary School, which is an old town, and a few blocks away was an all-white high school, elementary school. Again, it didn't trouble you, bother you, because the reality is that at the end of the day, the school day, we all met on the same playground, the same park. We tossed footballs, we played basketball, soccer, we wrestled, and everything else. In terms of that's the social side. In terms of the economic side of it, I grew up in public housing in a section known as the Burg. And, so we knew that we were somewhat different from other folks that didn't live in public housing. But we didn't realize, because we were all congregated in the same area, we didn't realize that, who was poorer or not. But we knew that folks that lived a few blocks from us obviously had a little better lifestyle and so forth. And but again, it was in Alexandria back in the 50s and 60s until almost the 70s, really was a small town, and it was almost not a lot of economic or vitality that took place except for a few blocks along King Street corridor. But over the years, as the population, as integration started taking hold, as the population started growing and so forth, we then came, and then, you can go to the movie theaters, you can go to the swimming pools, you can go into the drugstores and five and dime stores and everything else. That's when the life in Alexandria started to change for the positive. Growing up during in the 60s and 70s civil rights movement, I was inspired by the teachings and preachings of the likes of Dr. Martin Luther King. I never met the gentleman, but whenever he was on radio, television, I would stop, I would look, I would listen, I would observe, take in all the positive things, inspirational things that he was saying, particularly to young black males, in terms of how to get out of poverty, that the key to success, to helping to open doors, was education, education. He didn't say that after finishing high school, you needed to go off to college, you needed to get a master's. No, he just said, get that education, get that high school diploma. It will make life better, not only for you, but for your family. And so I took that to heart and really decided that that's what I wanted to do. So even as a youngster, not only was I delivering newspapers, which nobody, when you tell young people today, I used to deliver newspapers 5-7 days a week, they laugh at you. What do you mean you delivered newspapers? And so worked in a car wash, I worked in a restaurant part-time, and I volunteered. My mother was very active, not only in the church, PTA, Cub Scouts, and the like March of Dimes. And so I was a mama's boy. I was hung on her apron tail string. And so I would follow her when she'd go to different places. And I said, oh, maybe this is what you're supposed to do in life. And so, again, despite all the challenges that we were facing, one of the things that I've always subscribed to and believed in is that in terms of attitude, and I'm someone that grew up with a very negative attitude. I don't want to say negative, but I had an attitude, being a Taurus. And so if I didn't want to do something, I didn't do it. But I had a high school band teacher my senior year when I was graduating, and he said to me, and I was always very active in high school, class president, vice president, you name student government. I was like big man on campus at the high school. And so I asked my band director to sign my yearbook, and he said, Bill, he says, you're such a talented, bright successful individual. He said, I have no doubt that someday you could become the first African-American president of this country. And I laughed, so, oh, Mr. D, don't say that. And he said, honestly, I really believe so. He said, but there's one thing you need to do. And I said, what's that? He said, you must change your attitude. And I said, wow, this is a guy that's known me for more 5 years, and he's now for the first time telling me I need to change my attitude. And so I've come to realize that in terms of your attitude, it depends on how you respond. And I believe that 10% of what happens to you happens as a result of reacting to it. The other 90% is about actually doing something. And so my message today, and has been for many, many years, is in terms of inspiring others, particularly young folks, and today with the political arena that we have experienced and that we'll continue to experience, trying to get millennials and others to be engaged in the process of volunteering and getting active in political parties. Or I don't even tell them I'm a Democrat. I don't even tell them which party. I just say just do something, because we need future leaders just like me. I started off at age 24 when I raised my hand and said to the city council, I want to serve on the school board. The school system, it was going south, had gone south, everything was falling apart. The same school system that educated me and thousands of others before me, I wanted to stop the bleeding. I wanted to right the ship and make things better. And so at age 24, that's when I first got involved. And 10 years on the school board, 23 years city council and as mayor, and never stopped looking back. I was in the Cub Scouts. I was in the Boy Scouts. I volunteered with the as a youth volunteer at the Red Cross. I was everywhere, very active in my church. And it was something, again, that inspired me from Dr. Martin Luther King. And again, observing my mother. And I just came to believe that, and I was happy, a happier person, because I was out there being engaged, being involved, helping to make a difference in other people's lives. And so all these many years later, that's what keeps me going. And when people ask me, they say, gosh, we see you everywhere. You're very active, not only as a mayor, a business person. You're involved in like dozens of nonprofits. Why? What makes you tick? And I tell them, I said, I'm like that little bunny on the commercial, wind me up and I'll just keep going. And so for more than 40 years, I've been able to give back, make a difference because that's what inspires me and keeps me living and going all these many years. With very little sleep. I actually was having dinner last night with a young millennial who wanted to meet me. He had known about me for a couple of years. He lives in Arlington, but now works in Alexandria. And he said, Mr. Mayor, can I meet with you sometime? And, and we had an hour-long conversation. And when it was all over, you would have thought that I had preached the Bible to him in terms of how to live life and be involved. And he said, man, I've never had anybody that just, like in a leadership position like you, to just sit with me and explain life and how to do it. And so, I'm telling folks, I'm at the point now in life where I'm going to keep going until I can't go any further, but I want to motivate other people to do and be just like do the things I've done. When I finished college, came back to Alexandria, my first and only job for my first 15, almost 16 years working was with a small general contracting firm in Alexandria on the west end of the city, and the owner of the company really believed in me, trusted me enough to not only hire me as his first in-house staff accountant for what was a small company, growing business at that point in time, but to stay with them for all these many years and grow to be not only the CFO but the vice president of the company, and essentially second in command. When he did a lot of traveling, which he was a ski buff, I was the one left with having to make all the decision making and pay the bills and collect the revenues and so forth. And I had an opportunity to learn about bonding, working with the bonding and insurance companies and dealing with the lawyers, investing the monies, profit sharing plan, and so and hiring HR. And then I said, you know what? I've learned all these skills that I didn't have, on the job. I said, and I've learned to read construction plans and blueprints and specifications, go and negotiate contracts with federal agencies, contracting officials. I said, I can go out and start my own company. I can do this, because all the while I had some other folks that were pulling at my pulling at me and saying, hey, Bill, let's start our own construction company. Let's do this, and I'll invest, and you can run it. And I decided, you know what? If I'm going to do it, let me do it my way by myself. So I had the opportunity to leave my company, my employer, and I started the William D. Euille and Associates construction company, and very successful. We have won every opportunity to win every prize you can win as a small business not only from the U.S. Small Business Administration, but on the Washington Post and our Ernst & Young CPA firm and Chamber of Commerce. And it got to the point where it was like, gosh, we're getting all these awards for just being a small business. But the reason why we're getting the awards wasn't because we were just a small business. My whole principle and philosophy was, with not only me but with my employees, was to take monies, the profits, and give back to the community. And so we were out there supporting, at any given time, probably a dozen or more youth organizations, recreation programs, senior programs, workforce development, job training programs for youth and young adults. And I know this factually because I rolled monies from my business into the William D. Euille Foundation that I created. And so, for probably a good 6, 7, 8, 9 years, $150,000 a year going back into the community, not only in Alexandria, but throughout Northern Virginia. And but we were fortunate that we could do that. And so when I network with a lot of other business today, one of the things I always ask of them is, what's your commitment to giving back? Because that's how we're going to change, and not only change things that are wrong, but really make a difference. Positive economic side of it, I tell folks, people, as a government contractor, people call me up and say, hey, I need an addition built to my house. I need a garage, my basement renovated. And I said, we don't do that. I refer them to folks that do it. I work for federal government. I do big buildings, big projects from the ground up, or major renovations. We do multi-million-dollar deals. And so, and people would always say to me, well, how is it that you get so much business? You get all this work. Well, guess what? You know what? When the nonprofit comes and says, hey, we have this walkathon, 5K, 10K, can you be a sponsor? It was not an issue to do $250, $500, get your name slapped on the back of a t-shirt. Well, that's marketing, PR, and almost free. If I had to take an ad out in the Washington Post or in the Yellow Pages, I would spend 3-4 times that amount. And so the return on investment, a small investment of helping a nonprofit, I tell folks that's how it helped grow and expand my business. When I was elected mayor in 2003, again, the city was 254 years old at the time, and I had the opportunity to not only make history for myself, but for the city to become the first person of color to serve the city as its mayor. It was certainly an honor and a privilege, but even when I campaigned and even after I was elected, I would always just tell folks, this isn't about me being an African-American mayor. It's about me being the mayor of the city of Alexandria, my boyhood home, irrespective of race. And so, and my approach was then and still is today, and my campaign theme was to be a leader for one Alexandria, to unite, bring everybody together, bring the nonprofits, the business community, faith-based and others together to address the challenges that we were facing. And I think, I honestly believe in teamwork, and that's how you get things done, and that's been a success of mine through personal, business, and political life for all these many years. And so that was my message, that was my theme. I honestly believe that a lot of successes that we've achieved during my tenure for almost 13 years as mayor was a result of being able to address all those issues in a united way. Having grown up in Alexandria, reared in the public schools, graduated from T.C. Williams High School, I was in the top 5% of my class, but I wanted to go off to college and couldn't afford to go. I couldn't even afford, or my mother, the $10, whatever it was back then, $15 application fees to file to go to different schools that I was interested in. And I had a guidance counselor who believed in me, and she was very supportive. And she said to me, she said, you know what, Bill? She says, don't worry about the fees. She says, you apply. I know you're going to get in, probably just about all the schools you desire to apply to. She said, but I'll pay the fees for you. And I said, oh, you don't need to do that. She said, no. She said, I'll do it. She said, I'm sure someday you'll find a way to pay me back, but if you don't, no harm done. And so, so I applied to several schools that my peers were going to, like UVA, George Washington, East Carolina. And then this small school out of Connecticut, Quinnipiac College, approached. They were in Hamden, Connecticut, liberal arts private co-ed school, and they were in the DC metropolitan area recruiting for minorities. And so they interviewed me, and one day I was called out of class to meet the director of admissions who was in town visiting. And then he said, we looked over your records and I think we can get you in. And he said, not only that, we'll see what we can do to help you financially. A couple of days later, guidance counselor called me out of class again, and I went to her office, and she says, I have the admissions director on the phone. He wants to talk to you. And I said, hello, and he said, hey, Bill, congratulations. He says, we accept you into school, and we're going to give you a 4-year academic scholarship. I said, wow. I couldn't believe that. So I had that opportunity, and then, I guess I was, but I was working part-time on campus and had earned some money, and then I actually put the $50 or $60 in an envelope with a nice little thank you note back to my guidance counselor, mailed it to her, and I said, thanks for all that you've done for me, and then she sent it back, and she says, no, she says, you've earned it. So, as a result of my engagement and involvement in the community, one of the things that I said, if I ever have an opportunity to make some money, more money than I need, I'm going to support giving scholarships, helping those other youngsters that need to have opportunities to go to college. So I have been a very strong financial supporter of the Scholarship Fund of Alexandria over many, many years, sponsoring 4 designated scholarships, plus giving another $5,000 or $10,000 to the foundation, and so if in terms of inspiration, that's really what it all means to me. Is that the fact that you can help other people that desire to go to college, they need some financial assistance, and as I tell kids every day when I'm at the Boys and Girls Club, rec centers, YMCA, I said, don't even worry about not going to college, about how you're going to pay for it. That's the job of me and others in the community. You get the education, you perform well, we'll get you there. That's been my message. I met with a group of young youth at a rec center a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking to them. These are kids that are doing very well in school. They live in public housing and so forth, and I was just querying them about what are some of the challenges they're facing and how we can help them, and what do you need, what more do you need that you're not getting in school, that you're not getting at home, with your family or whatever, and what you're not getting in the community. And they all said that we need mentors, we need role models, we need people that we can look up to that have met with success. And all the more reason why for all my years in elected office and then as a business person, whenever I would get a phone call or a written request from any school, even outside the city limits of Alexandria, and I've gone to schools in Fairfax and in Maryland and in the District of Columbia, and folks would say, we'd like to have somebody like you come and speak to students in our class, in our school, who don't get to see people like you. And I said, sure, I'd do it. And so my schedule as mayor and businessman is always jam-packed. And whenever people call, if you're not already in my calendar, I'll have to say regrets, but we'll pick you up in the future. But whenever a school or teacher or principal, anybody at a rec center call and say, Mr. Mayor, can you come and talk to our kids? I drop everything I'm doing and I'm there, Johnny, on the spot, because these kids need to meet and greet and see someone like me so they can be inspired.